Welcome to the farm.
Welcome back to the farm. I'm Justin, and today we're going to mess around with our antique Case SC tractor 1943. We're going to work on swapping out the engine oil and the transmission oil just to make sure this thing's got good clean fluids in it while it's sitting. I know I said I wasn't going to do anything with this until winter, but I walk past this thing every day. I can't help it. Just want to touch it. And right now it's sitting outside. We do have plans to get it under cover to try to keep it in at least as good a shape as it is. So the reason I'm changing oils is, one, I want to just store this with fresh oil. Two, this particular model tractor does not have an oil filter on it, so all the debris and grit and all that stuff just sits in the oil. This thing's been sitting for a couple weeks now without moving, so I want to drain it, get whatever sediment we can out, make sure there's no water in any of these cases, especially if I'm not going to be really working on it until winter. I definitely don't want water sitting in there freezing or rusting any parts out. Hoping there's no water in it, but that's all part of doing this. And if we get all that accomplished, we may try seeing if this thing has spark or not. I doubt we'll try to get it running today. I only have a few hours, but we can at least get started in the process. So let's get going. So before I go ahead and open the drain plug and let all the oil out, I want to make sure that I can get oil back in. So I'm going to open up these two plugs on the side of the pan. These two plugs are our oil level plugs. There's no dipstick on this tractor to check fill. What you do is you open up these two plugs and find out where your level is and if you need to add. So I want to make sure I get these two open, and then I'll also go ahead and open up the fill point, make sure I can get oil back in this thing. And I ran into issues with this bottom plug. It is completely round. There's almost no flat on it whatsoever. I was hoping that I could get a smaller wrench on it. Didn't work. I could get an adjustable wrench on there. That didn't work. I was hoping I could, get a socket on there and have that 12-point socket and have that grab and be able to pull the plug out. Almost started rounding instantly, so I ended up grabbing a file, filing the flats back in so I could get a adjustable wrench on it. It's not a standard size anymore, but obviously a standard size wrench wasn't working anyway. Once I got the flats filed back in, I made sure I got the adjustable wrench on as tight as I could to give as much grip as I possibly could without rounding the corners back off. And once I did that, it popped open pretty easy. Now I can open up the fill plug. And what I did to assist with that is I took the adjustable wrench and I tightened it down as much as I could on the little feet on top of the plug to give me some leverage to get that to break loose. It really wasn't on there that hard. And this is the point in the video where the plan falls off the rails. Well, I think it's safe to say it's got no oil in it. Oh, no, it's got something in there. I gotta get something to poke it. Definitely got some smudge. Alright, here we go. Yeah, it's pretty gross. Alright, since that was so disgusting, I'm going to pull the cover for the oil pump screen and see if we can't see in there a little bit better, because that was pretty gross. I'm pretty sure everything that's in there ceased to be oil. So that makes me really glad I didn't just start trying to put fuel and spark to this and start cranking it. Since the sludge was so bad in the bottom of this pan, I decided to dump a little diesel fuel in to try to dilute the sludge and use the diesel fuel as a detergent and kind of clean out the pan a little bit, because I didn't want to add the oil that I was going to store this with on top of all that sludge. So I want to try to get some of it out. There may be an issue of the diesel fuel damaging some of the seals or whatever inside the tractor itself. I'm not overly concerned about that, because at some point this is probably all going to come apart and all those seals and gaskets will get replaced anyway. So I wasn't overly concerned about that. I was more concerned about getting the sludge out of the pan. Now I'm going to work on cleaning out the oil pump screen. I ended up using just brake clean. I figured it was the easiest way. The screen itself was about half full of sludge, and there's no way to really get in there with the brushes or anything, clean it out. So the brake clean did really well dissolving it and getting it all out of there, although I did go through almost a whole can because there was just such a thick layer in there. Also spraying a little bit of brake clean in the bolt holes. The bolt holes go straight through all the way into the pan. So as I was scraping sludge, it was all coming out through those bolt holes as well. And I didn't want to put the bolts back in with all that sludge and grit in the threads. Even though the bolts themselves are kind of rusted and will probably need to be replaced, I still didn't want to put them in there with all that garbage in the threads. I decided to fill the pan with diesel again, all the way up till the full mark, so that anything that was sitting in that old oil and sludge would then be soaked with diesel and hopefully break out any other debris and grit and get that out of the pan along with the rest of the sludge. So I let the diesel sit in there for about 15-20 minutes. Not horribly long, just hopefully enough to break some more stuff up. And surprisingly, it came out of the pan pretty clean. I was expecting it to be a lot dirtier with the amount of sludge I had in there. So I'm pretty happy with those results. I think I got the pan pretty clean, or as clean as I can get it for now. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the oil pump screen one more time. Take a look at that, take a look inside the pan, see if I see anything. And really, it's pretty clean in there. I'm not finding too much more sludge. I think I got most of it out. So after doing this final check for sludge, I did refill the pan with fresh oil. However, I forgot to push the record button, so I don't have footage of me dumping oil in the engine. That being said, it is just dumping oil in the engine. Probably not much excitement in seeing that anyway. But I wanted to make sure to put engine oil back in. One, to dilute the diesel that is now all over those parts and get it off those parts to keep it from doing whatever corroding or whatever it might do to seals or whatever. And two, to keep moisture off the parts that would normally be submerged in oil to keep rust off of them. Well, obviously that did not go according to plan today. Like I said in the beginning of the video, the plan was engine oil, transmission oil, and maybe even start working on spark. Yeah, we didn't even get past the engine oil. But these things happen. It makes me a little nervous on how much grit was in that sludge though. Like, it was like sand in there. So hopefully all that sand didn't get run through the engine, as there's no oil filter on this thing, and hopefully the cylinder walls and the pistons and all that stuff aren't shot. That would kind of be a bummer, but we won't really know until we start diving into it. I'll have to get some parts so we can start ripping this engine apart. I was hoping to drain the oil, spark fuel, see if we can hear this thing run before we started ripping it apart, but I don't think that's going to happen because I don't want to risk running all that stuff through. It may change, like I said, with dropping the oil pan. We'll see what we find. But hopefully you guys found this interesting. I know I still had fun, even though it didn't turn out the way I wanted. What could be better than working on an old tractor, right? I mean, you can't. But if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. We really appreciate it. Consider subscribing to the channel. There's hopefully going to be a lot more on this Case tractor as we start getting into it and I start getting parts, and along with all the other projects we got on the farm. So consider subscribing. We'd appreciate that as well. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.